Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Today, we're talking about defamation and investigative journalism. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada, but didn't. Alain Gavel was an employee of the CBC in Quebec. He did an investigative journalism story against an individual that ultimately resulted in a series of stories that played on CBC's television channel in Quebec. As a result of those stories, certain allegations were made about the conduct of the individual who was under investigation, which led to Mr. Gavel being sued with a defamation lawsuit. Mr. Gavel was successful at trial, demonstrating that he showed that he was diligent in conducting the investigation and that he carried out a thorough examination of all of the sources, but on appeal was unsuccessful, and the court ordered that Mr. Gavel pay $60,000 in damages to the individual who was the subject of the investigation. Mr. Gavel sought leave to the Supreme Court of Canada, and the Supreme Court of Canada denied the leave application. This case raises important issues about what it is that an investigative journalist has to do in order to avoid a potential allegation of defamation. Investigative journalism is a very important part of the work that journalists do in our society, and lots of things that have led ultimately to criminal charges, led to changes in the way that governments are run or businesses operate, that have led to massive fundamental and systemic change in our society, have been done as a result of the work done by investigative journalists. Investigative journalists serve an important role as one of the many checks and balances on the functions of government and on the functions of individual and private businesses. And yet, to hamstring the work that investigative journalists do by suggesting that they could be sued in defamation if the results of their investigative journalism don't rise to the level of proof that would be necessary in court, but still are a matter of public interest, might have a chilling effect on the discourse done through investigative journalism and the reports that are made as a result of those. And because of ethical obligations on journalists, the information that they discover, which might then trigger a criminal prosecution, isn't just something that they can hand over to the police without publicly reporting. That is, in fact, their role. So having the Supreme Court of Canada really outline what standard of proof would be necessary for an investigative journalist to shield themselves against a defamation action where they believed the information that they were reporting was true and accurate, where they exercised reasonable diligence in gathering the information, where they try to present all of the sides of a story. This is something that the Supreme Court of Canada should absolutely have an interest in putting out there and defining and clarifying. Especially now that we see that the bounds of journalism don't just start and end with members of the press who are certified by government, but we see all sorts of different types of websites dealing with investigative journalism, some of which is great investigative work done by podcasters, done by YouTube hosts, done by TikTokers, and some of which is not great investigative journalism, often done by alt-right or conspiracy theory websites that want to push a certain narrative. Where is the line and how is that line drawn? What exposes journalists or would-be journalists to liability and what doesn't? The Supreme Court of Canada had an important opportunity to define these issues in a way that could impact and will impact the face of journalism in Canada. And unfortunately, they just really missed the opportunity here. Hopefully another case comes before the court where the chance to talk about the role that investigative journalists play in our democracy and the role that investigative journalists play in shielding themselves from defamation allegations and in not committing defamation can be fully considered by the Supreme Court. Cases that should have gone to the Supreme Court of Canada but didn't. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cases That Should Have Gone to the Supreme Court of Canada but Didn't. I'm Kyla Lee at Acumen Law Corporation. Thank you to Brazen Bull Creative for putting together these videos. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.